Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's good to be back. My name is Sam Teets, coming at you live from New Jersey, where there's currently about 2.5 feet of snow on the ground. So I was going to do a show with Real Truth today. We were going to interview Chuck Foreman, former All-Pro Minnesota Vikings running back, but he was not available today, so we're going to try again tomorrow. I encourage you to go follow the Real Truth on Facebook, check out some of our content. We interviewed Pittsburgh Steelers legendary running back Rocky Bleier the other day. So go watch that interview. It was a lot of fun. I personally really enjoyed it. That was a great moment for me. I really enjoyed getting a chance to talk with Rocky and ask him some questions, get some funny stories, and hear a little bit about guys like Chuck Noll and Franco Harris. But again, I encourage you to go check out that channel. You can find it on YouTube, but you can also find it on Facebook. It's primarily we have all of our content. It's a little more organized there as well. So I would go check that out. But today, I want to do a mock draft. And I'm very big into the mock drafts and that kind of stuff. I really enjoy this kind of situation. Everything to do with free agency, where it's ranking for agents or trying to figure out the salary cap spacing for teams or mock drafts, trades, all kinds of stuff. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy this time of year. Even though my team's not in the Super Bowl, I still really think it's a lot of fun. So I want to run through a mock draft for you guys today. And this is based on an article which I will probably post in my description. But that's my initial thoughts on how the draft will play out. And this will change quite a bit, I'm sure, as the year goes on. But I did see some stuff in the Senior Bowl that might alter a little bit in the future. And we'll see how these pro days / combine thing, whatever they end up doing, or however this ends up playing out, we'll see how that alters some of the ideas that I have going forward. But I'd like to remind everyone I'm using the Draft Network mock machine. And this is a great machine, by the way. It's one of the best ones out there. Let you go through the full draft. You can view player profiles, that kind of stuff, pros, cons, everything like that. So I encourage you to go over and use the Draft Network's mock draft machine. I'll just pull that up here real quickly. 1 second. And there we go. All right, so starting off initially with the Jacksonville Jaguars. This one's pretty easy for me. I've seen a few people question Trevor Lawrence going number 1 overall. I just think that's insane. I think the talent level there is crazy. I think Trevor Lawrence is one of those generational talents. Now, understand this. Generational talent is a term that's overused far too often. And it's kind of difficult using it on Trevor Lawrence because we just had Joe Burrow, and I viewed Joe Burrow as a generational talent as well. And having two of these guys back-to-back, it's very unusual. But I think this is an applicable situation where he is a generational talent. He is a player who's going to be great. Who's going to be a Pro Bowler and possibly even All-Pro moving forward for the next decade. And the last generational quarterback, just to give you an idea of how I view it, the last generational talent to come out of college before Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence was Andrew Luck. So I put Trevor Lawrence in that same situation, that same category, which is why I think it would be insane for Jacksonville and Urban Meyer to pass up on Trevor Lawrence at number 1. Number 2, this is where things get a little bit interesting. The Jets have a lot of areas they could go with here. They could trade back for one, get a lot more picks. They have 2 first-round picks this year. And assuming they don't send those to Houston for Deshaun Watson, we don't know how Deshaun Watson's situation is going to play out, by the way. I know Houston wants to keep him desperately, and I know that a lot of teams want to get their hands on him. But assuming right now, let's just assume that this is the order for the 2021 NFL draft and things don't change between now and then. Just number 2, they could trade back. They could take Penei Sewell and have bookend tackles. Like, sure, I have Mekhi back then at left tackle. You could take a wide receiver like Jamar Chase or Devonta Smith and get a true wide receiver 1 at the point. I think taking a tight end like Kyle Pitts would be a little crazy at number 2, but Kyle Pitts is a generational talent. I put him in that category as well. Or you can go with quarterback. And I like Sam Darnold. I really think Sam Darnold could be the second or third best QB in this draft class if he was coming out with this group. My issue is that he's been messed up a little bit mentally because of what's going on in New York over the past couple of years since he's been there. He's entering his 5th year in the league, I believe, at this point, and things just have not worked out for him. And it's not entirely his fault. The coaching staff, Adam Gase, had a lot to do with that. He's entering his 4th season in the league currently. Like I said, Adam Gase had a lot to do with the problems in New York. And so did poor personnel, quite frankly. The offensive line was not nearly as good as it needed to be. And they didn't have the grit, the best receivers around him. Obviously, no running game this past year. So guys like Darnold were set up to fail. But I just don't know. Like, Darnold will still be a good quarterback in my eyes. I still think he can rebound. I just don't think it can happen in New York. I think it's got to be somewhere else. I think if it's in Indianapolis or it's in San Francisco, Carolina, Houston, well, probably not Houston. Houston's even more dysfunctional than Jets at this point. But one of those more stable situations where we have guys like Frank Wright or Kyle Shanahan, he can rebound and play well in those situations and be not a top 10 quarterback, but a top half of the league quarterback. I mean, think about it like a Jared Goff territory. I think Darnold could enter a Jared Goff territory if he had stable coaching. So there are a lot of issues there. I just think that you bring in a new head coach. He knows the situation with Sam Darnold. Robert Saleh is a great defensive coach, not necessarily an offensive-minded guy. But I just can't pass up on Zach Wilson here. I love what Zach Wilson does. I love his ability to extend plays, roll out, make things happen. Granted, the worst game of his past season was against Coastal Carolina, which is arguably the best competition he played. So there is a little bit of concern that the competition level and the output against bad teams might alter how people view him or how he might produce in the NFL level. I should point out that Coastal Carolina game was not a bad game necessarily. It just was not his best game. It was probably his worst game of the year. It was still an average game. So I don't know. Zach Wilson to me is a very polarizing guy just because of the situation he was in college, but also like the production. But you watch him and the talent just jumps off the page to me. All right, pick number 3. This is fairly easy for me. I think the Dolphins are a prime spot to trade back here, but assuming no one trades back yet, and I think there will be inevitably someone who trades up into the top 10 because of the rush for quarterbacks. We see it happen every year. Quarterbacks get overdrafted up in the top 10. I would expect that to happen again. So I think someone will try to get up here, trade up into the top 5. Well, I'm not going to go through trades right now. I'm not really going to worry about that. So Miami, I think a reasonable pick here. Jamar Chase, to me, is the best receiver on the board. I know Devonta Smith is there, and Devonta Smith was the Heisman winner this year. But Jamar Chase had just as good of a season last year. I don't think there's a huge difference between those two in production. I just think that Chase is the more prototypical NFL body, and that is probably attractive enough to put him ahead of a guy like Devonta Smith, who doesn't necessarily look like a bunch of the other receivers you can see coming out and being top 10 prospects. That's not to say he can't be great. I think he still will be great. I just don't think that if you're holding them both up and you view them both as equals, I think that difference in body composition will put Jamar Chase a little bit higher than Devonta Smith. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Devonta Smith is very light. He's very tall, I don't want to say gangly, but he's lengthy but doesn't pack a lot of weight. He weighs a lot less than a guy his size usually does. All right, the Atlanta Falcons. Tons of places you can go here. The offensive line, you got a bunch of guys who are up there, former first-round picks and all that, but it's not very good. Linebacker level, you could use linebacker. Micah Parsons is there. Edge, definitely. I mean, you signed Dante Fowler last year, but that really hasn't produced much. Even corner safety. I mean, the Falcons could really restructure most of their defense except for a great defensive tackle. They don't really need to build. They didn't replace him. They need to build around him. I just don't know how they do that right now because there's so many needs this team has. I see this team really declining right now. I don't think they're going to get back to the Super Bowl or the playoffs anytime soon, especially with Tom Brady in that division right now. I think there's a better chance for Carolina, honestly, usurping them and kind of getting to the playoffs before Atlanta rebounds. Just even though Atlanta has Julio Jones and Matt Ryan, they're just in a bad spot with their team right now in the roster composition. So I think it's time for them to look towards the future. I know a lot of people haven't taken quarterback, and I would like to throw a curveball into the mix, but I think they have to take a quarterback here. And to me, the best one available is Justin Fields. And it hurts. Trey Lance is getting hurt mostly because we haven't really seen him in a year and a half to 2 years at this point. Yes, he played one game this season, but it was really an exhibition game. It's hard to take any of that realistically. So I think Trey Lance is getting a little bit hurt by recency bias of not seeing him play. But I still view him as a guy who'll go in the top 15 picks, and we'll get to him later. For now, number 5, Cincinnati Bengals. I think Penei Sewell is a pretty easy pick here. You have Jonah Williams at left tackle, who has not been phenomenal, even though he was a great, highly talented prospect coming out of college. He's not been great. I think if you view Penei Sewell as a true left tackle, maybe slide Jonah Williams over to right tackle. You've got bookend tackles down to protect Joe Burrow, which should be your primary target moving forward, is protecting him and securing the future. It says wide receiver is the top need here. I kind of disagree. You have Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd is a guy who will get you roughly 1,000 yards a year with a good quarterback. You have T. Higgins, who could be an 1,000-yard wide receiver. Those guys are probably both number twos, not true number ones. But if you have two number twos, I think that's good enough to where you can prioritize the offensive line versus the wide receiver core. And there will be wide receivers available later in this draft and more wide receivers available in free agency. There are really very few tackles with the level of play of Penei Sewell. Number 6, the Philadelphia Eagles. I know they took Jalen Reagor last year, but they took him ahead of Justin Jefferson, which was a boneheaded move to begin with. But if the Philadelphia Eagles don't take a wide receiver with their top pick in this draft, there will be riots in Philadelphia. It'll be crazy. And Devontae Smith is still on the board. I know I raised some questions about his health and his makeup going forward. And there's Jalen Waddle out there, but Jalen Waddle was the guy who got injured this past year. Jalen Waddle might have more of the raw physical traits you want, like the speed, that kind of stuff. But Devontae Smith, to me, is very polished. The route running is tremendous. And the Eagles already took a shot at a traitsy guy last year with Jalen Reagor, who could still be a quality number 2 option, but I don't think he's going to be a number 1 by any means. Certainly not as good as Justin Jefferson. So Devontae Smith it is here. The Detroit Lions, this is an interesting one because you need a wide receiver as well. So Jalen Waddle here would be a great fit. You also really need a linebacker. I'm going to pull up Detroit's depth chart here in a second. I'm going a little bit off topic. This is actually, I think, how my mock draft played out perfectly, despite the fact that I wasn't even reading off of it so far. But it seems like my mentality so far hasn't changed that much from when I had a mock draft come out about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I don't know with the Lions because you can go linebacker here. They've got a guy like Gerard Davis who they've gone out and picked in the past. That doesn't really work out. I think you have to take a wide receiver or a linebacker here. You could prioritize the edge as well because you don't really have much of a pass rush at this point. And let's be honest, that whole defense in general. I mean, Romeo Okwara is a free agent. What impact players do you have defensively? You went after Okudah last year with the top 5 pick, and that didn't work out. So you could say any pick defensively is a huge upgrade for Detroit at this point. But Kenny Golladay is free agent. Marvin Jones is free agent. You're not getting either of those guys back unless you franchise tag Golladay, which you don't see them doing. So you need to rebuild this wide receiver core. You're bringing in Jared Goff because you traded away Matt Stafford. You know what Goff is at this point. Goff can't succeed without weapons. He had trouble succeeding with weapons last year in Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. So you desperately need to add some receiving weapons here, which is why Jalen Waddle will go 7th overall. And now Carolina. Carolina does need a quarterback. Because I like Teddy Bridgewater. Don't get me wrong. He's got an incredible story. But he's not going to take you to the Super Bowl. He's not that good of a quarterback. He's a mid-level QB. And if the Rams trade away Jared Goff, who I think is actually better than Teddy Bridgewater, then Bridgewater is fairly expendable in this kind of situation. The only issue is Trey Lance is the best QB available. I do not know for a fact that Trey Lance is better than Teddy Bridgewater. I feel very comfortable at the top 3 quarterbacks in this draft. Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson will be better than Teddy B, but I don't know about Trey Lance. So I'm going to leave QB alone for now. And we're going to look at what else Carolina needs. They do need a linebacker. They have a spot opening with Tyre Whitehead, who's hitting free agency, I believe. So you're going to have a spot open alongside your 2 linebackers. You invested quite a bit in Shaq Thompson, who obviously is the captain for them, a very important player. And Jerry McShinnon was a rookie last year who had a phenomenal season. Matt Rule used every pick he had last year on defense, though, so you maybe think, look, offensively, Kyle Pitts is out there. Kyle Pitts is a huge game changer, so whoever you have at quarterback can love to have that guy available. Offensive tackle, that could be a big issue. Both your offensive tackles are free agents, so do you go for a guy like Rashawn Slater or Cosme? I'm going to stick to what I originally had in my mock draft because I have pulled it up now. I'm going to stick with linebacker and go Micah Parsons, plug him along the other 2 guys I already mentioned, Chin Thompson, and you have a trio of great linebackers. There are some off-field concerns there with his dedication, his work ethic, that kind of stuff. So it's not like he is a player with no potential flaws off the field. There are concerns there for Parsons. I've seen some mock drafts that have come out since those concerns were raised more and more in recent weeks, and he's fallen quite a bit. So keep in mind, this is a mock draft I did 4 weeks ago, and I'm going to stick with it all the way through here, explain some of my reasoning. But for now, I'm still giving Parsons to the Panthers, but I think that is one of the biggest picks that is subject to change here in the coming weeks. Number 9, the Denver Broncos. This is pretty easy for me. I'm going to go with Patrick Surtain. And I recognize that you might want to add some edge rushers here, but frankly, with the scheme they use defensively, if you take Kwity Paye, he's not going to really be playing on the edge. It'll be Bradley Chubb and Von Miller still. So I don't think that you're going to get a true edge kind of guy here at this spot number 9. Patrick Surtain is still by a thin margin for me, the best corner in the draft. They need help there. Speaking of teams that need help at corner, Dallas Cowboys at 10. I don't know. I am going to deviate. I said I was going to stick to my mock. My mock had Christian Darrisaw going here. And I understand why I did that. But in hindsight, looking back at it, I think Rashawn Slater is the better player. So I'm just going to let you know. I'm still going to pick Darrisaw because I had to go off what I had on my first mock. But Rashawn Slater has really risen up draft boards recently. And this is the kind of guy who, if he fails a tackle, could kick into guard. So I understand why Slater has moved up so far. But if you're looking at just a pure tackle prospect, Christian Darrisaw is probably a better bet than Slater. And just one other thing to add here. The Cowboys do have two franchise tackles in Lyle Collins and Tyron Smith, but they've been injured quite a bit. And Smith is clearly on the decline, which is why I'm projecting a tackle here for Dallas. All right, the New York Giants, they need pass rush. They just need someone to get after the quarterback. And they had that guy this year in Leonard Williams, who they might franchise tag again after franchise tagging him last year. Or maybe they find a way to extend him, whatever they have to do. They have to find a way to keep the pass rush around because they haven't had that for a while. That's been why they've been struggling. So if you're in New York, and let's say for now, you can't get Leonard Williams back because he's going to want a lot of money. Who's that leave available? Your best chance is probably getting Kwity Paye, bringing him in, having him line up there. Because Dalvin Tomlinson on the defensive line, who's your nose tackle, is also a free agent, which will really create a lot of holes up there. It just leaves Dexter Lawrence, last man remaining from the front three, which is why you need at least one replacement. Kwity Paye, good pass rusher, very tradesy guy from Michigan. They're probably going to enjoy having him on the team, and that will really help out Joe Judge's defense. San Francisco, again, another team that can go in a lot of directions, but I think you do need to find that replacement for Richard Sherman, and you have Jason Verrett, who is a free agent who started most of the last season for you. It was actually a fairly effective corner, despite all the injured history he has. He stayed healthy. I'm going to say that you take Caleb Farley here. And I know that there's some people who have him actually as the top corner in the draft ahead of Surtain, and I understand why. However, he hasn't really played much recently because of the whole COVID thing and everything like that. I don't think he played this past season at all, actually. So I'm going to drop a little bit for that because I like to see multiple years of prime tape from players before I put them up that high. And, we haven't seen the multiple years of tape from him, so I'm going to leave him at 12 for now. But that is a realistic pick for a 49ers team that needs cornerback help desperately. All right, the Chargers. This is where I have Rashawn Slater going. And again, if I could go back in time and reverse this mock draft, which I'll create another one. I'll probably post another one later this week. But I would have Slater going higher than Darrisaw. And frankly, I could just swap them in this situation, put Darrisaw going to the Chargers and Slater going to the Cowboys. I would still feel fairly comfortable with that. But Slater is a very versatile offensive lineman from Northwestern. And frankly, the Chargers just need offensive linemen. It doesn't matter if it's guard. It doesn't matter if it's tackle at this point. They just desperately need offensive linemen who are starting caliber players. And Slater certainly is that. So I think that's a good pick for them, regardless of what he turns into, whether it's a guard or tackle in the NFL. You get what you need for the Chargers. Minnesota at 14. We're not even halfway through it, so I'm starting to lose my voice already. One of the picks that I keep seeing happening, and I went on board with this one, is Gregory Rousseau. I don't agree with how high Joseph Osai is actually ranked here in this mock draft simulator, by the way. At 17, I don't think he's that good. I don't think he's a first-round pick, frankly, in my eyes. So it's not going to be Osai. It's going to be Gregory Rousseau from Miami. Again, another guy who, because of COVID-19, we don't get to see nearly enough of in these situations. And that does, like I said, worry me a little bit. But at the same point, he had that really good year of production back in 2019. And we were just looking at that, looking at his size, 6'7", 265. This is a guy who has basically all the traits you need. It's just the 1 year worth of production, though, at college. So maybe that scares you a little bit. But I think you take Rousseau, put him next to Danielle Hunter, and suddenly you've got a great pass rushing duo, which is what you were trying to do when you traded for Nyok Ngakoue last year, but that never worked out for Minnesota. Maybe this time it will. But in future mocks, by the way, I'm probably not going to draft defensive end to the Vikings because they drafted one last year from South Carolina who they like a lot. So I'm probably not going to have that in future mocks, but for now, I'm leaving it there. Now we get to New England Patriots, and this is where I have Trey Lance going. The Patriots are willing to take shots with these kind of players, and I think Trey Lance at 15 to New England is too perfect. It probably won't happen because I think Trey Lance will go higher than 15. But keep in mind, this is my first mock. One thing you will notice also in this mock is I have Kyle Pitts going way later than he should. That won't happen in the future. Kyle Pitts will go probably top 15 in future mocks, but for now, like I said, I'm going off my first mock, which I posted a couple weeks ago, almost a month ago at this point. So it's a little out of date, January 13th. So I need to get another one out soon. But just keep your head on straight for now. Just stick with me. Kyle Pitts will go eventually. But like I said, Trey Lance, only the one game this year. A little worrisome. But it was perfect the season before that. Did not throw an interception. He's a developmental kind of guy. But I don't think you want to plug and play right away. But I thought a similar thing about Justin Herbert last year. I thought Justin Herbert had some serious flaws. And he comes out and he's probably going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. So, don't take my word as gospel here. I've gotten plenty of things wrong in the past, and I will continue to get plenty of things wrong in the future. Arizona Cardinals at 16. J.C. Horn is the pick for me here. J.C. Horn is essentially replacing Patrick Peterson. They also have Drake Kirkpatrick there, who are both free agents. So you need a corner here. J.C. Horn's the guy. You could also surround Kyler Murray with more offensive talent, but I think you have to go defensively here. You cannot go all offense if you're Arizona because your offense is not as good as Kansas City's. It never will be. The Chiefs can afford to go offense in the first round every year. A team like Arizona cannot. Las Vegas Raiders. This is a very interesting team. They started the year very hot, the past 2 seasons actually, and have just petered out at the end. They need defensive help. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah does not have a lot of size. He's actually weighs less than Isaiah Simmons did last year when Isaiah Simmons came out. So he's very small. Well, not very small, but he's very light for a linebacker. I just think they need a playmaker on that side of the ball. I mean, they signed Corey Littleton for agency. He didn't do nearly as much as they hoped he would. I think Owusu-Koramoah gives them that playmaker on defense who will be able to go sideline to sideline and help out in coverage, do everything you need here to just raise what has been a terrible defense. All right, the Miami Dolphins. A lot of people mock like Travis Etienne or Najee Harris here to them. I understand they could use a running back, but I like Myles Gaskin a lot. I don't think you need to upgrade over him, especially not in the first round at least. I'm adding Zaven Collins. And Zaven Collins is the kind of guy who does everything. He's all over the field all the time, making incredible plays, racking up stats. Collins will fit in perfectly along a linebacking core that already has Kyle Van Noy. These kind of guys do a little bit of everything. I'm looking at stats right now. Collins in 8 games this past year, 54 tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 4 interceptions, 2 defensive touchdowns, 2 passes defense, a fumble recovery, and 2 forced fumbles. If you get anywhere near that kind of production at the NFL level, I mean, that's Pro Bowl caliber play. Now, granted, obviously, production does not always translate directly from college to the NFL. We get that. But I think Zaven Collins has those tools and traits to be, I don't necessarily want to say elite linebacker right away, but an impact player immediately on defense. Washington. Again, this is a pick that I would change in the future just because I think the offensive tackles are kind of shuffled around a little bit. I think someone like Tevin Jenkins would be more suited to go here, but I have Jalen Mayfield actually going to Washington at the spot because most of the QBs that I like are off the board. I don't view Mac Jones as a first-round pick. I forget someone on Twitter the other day. Maybe it was Daniel Jeremiah or Bucky Brooks, maybe one of those guys. They said it this way: do you want trucks or trailers as your quarterback? If your quarterback is a truck, he's going to be able to drive you to where you want to go. He's going to be the guy who gets you to places. Or a trailer. Do you want a trailer as a quarterback where everything has to be set up around them in order to move them and carry them and drag them to where you want to go? You want a truck at quarterback. There are 4 potential trucks in this draft. Mac Jones is not one of them. Mac Jones and Kyle Trask, those guys are trailers. So I don't have either one of those guys going in the first round, at least not in this mock. And Chicago. Sorry, I got a little bit sidetracked there. I was talking about Washington. That's why I don't have Mac Jones going to Washington. And I have Jalen Mayfield going there. As long as they keep Brandon Scherff, they have a good right side of that line. It's just the left side's not very good right now. if you plug in Mayfield's left tackle, that will help out quite a bit. All right, the Bears. I still have Elijah Vera Tucker on the board. I still have Wyatt Davis. I picked Wyatt Davis here in the first mock, and again, that first mock is 4 weeks old. If I had to remock it, I would have Wyatt Davis much further down the list. But I did go at number 20, give him here to Chicago Bears. I think it could really help out to have a Mauler up front for them, help open up that running game a little bit sooner in the year. We saw David Montgomery catch on very late in the season, but the offensive line needs upgrades across the board. A guy like Wyatt Davis will absolutely pound you in the running game. I think Chicago would really use someone like that. All right, Indy 21. Kadarius Toney. Pair him with Michael Pittman Jr. Pittman Jr. is the more prototypical size and build kind of receiver. Toney is more of the do a little bit of everything kind of guy. He's the kind of guy you put in the backfield sometimes. Just get him the ball, have him a return game potentially. Everything you can do, put him on, use reverses, that kind of stuff. Just get him the ball, let him make plays. He's very twitchy, very athletic. And he's shot draft boards really quite a bit in the past, I want to say 3 or 4 months. And he's a guy who I think will be wide receiver 4. I know there are other players in this draft people like. I know Rashawn Bateman's out there, but I think Kadarius Toney will be wide receiver 4. All right, this is probably my biggest mistake in my first mock draft. I had Tennessee selecting Joseph Osai here. Let me find edge where I'm looking. I had them taking Osai because obviously they need edge help. But looking back on it, because again, I kind of made the mock draft 4 weeks ago, and what I said in it was I was just throwing stuff at a wall, seeing what got stuck. I overrated Osai quite a bit. Going back and looking at Jalen Phillips, had a much better college career, was much more productive in college, and just is more consistent and athletically freakish. I think you would take someone like Jalen Phillips ahead of Joseph Osai. I don't think you would take Carlos Basham ahead of him, but I think you can make a great argument that both the Georgia Project product Azeez Ojulari and Jason Owe. I don't know how to say his name. I got Ojulari right, but I don't know how to say Jason Owe. Maybe that's how it is. But I think you can make a good argument for both those guys going ahead of Osai as well as Jalen Phillips. But I'm sticking to my original mock, like I said, just talking through it. Obviously, the Titans need an edge rusher. I think they will take one here regardless, whoever it is. But I have Osai in my first mock. I will definitely change that in future situations. New York at 23. There are very few people on board taking running backs in the first round anymore. I think there are 2 running backs worth first-round picks in this draft, Najee Harris and Travis Etienne. I have Harris going here to New York. I think he's just as good, if not a better pass catcher than Travis Etienne, even though he didn't play that role necessarily as much as Etienne did in Clemson. I think I'm going into this year, I viewed Etienne as a Clemson student and a Clemson alum now. I am a little biased towards Etienne, but I think after watching what I saw Harris do throughout the year and in the playoffs, I think I have him now as running back 1 and Etienne as running back 2. And, now people are on board taking running backs in the first round, but I think the Jets, you got to do something about the offense, and maybe you take an offensive lineman instead. Vera Tucker still out there. That would be a great pickup for them. But again, I stuck with this mock draft. I have Najee Harris going 23, New York Jets. 24, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh needs to take offensive lineman first round, running back second round, offensive lineman third round, or offensive lineman first round, offensive lineman second round, running back third round. Whatever combination that I'm fine with. But you need to fix the offensive line. You have Alejandro Villanueva hitting free agency, Marquise Pounchy potentially retiring, and Matt Filer or Feeler. I never forgot how to say his last name. Also hitting free agency. Those are 3 stars essentially leaving the offensive line, so you need to get those guys back. And frankly, the other stars, David DeCastro, has declined a bit in recent years, and the right tackle, the play wasn't great this year, I'm not going to lie. So a lot of issues here. I am taking Liam Eichenberg from Notre Dame. I think Tevin Jenkins would also be a good selection here. And frankly, Sam Cosmi wouldn't be a bad one either. I would be down with any of those 3 selections, but I think offensive tackle has to be the pick here for Pittsburgh. This brings up Jacksonville's second selection of the first round. And this is where I have Kyle Pitts finally coming off the board. I said already, this was an early mock. It's not near perfect in any way, shape, or form. Kyle Pitts will be a top 15 pick in this draft. I can almost guarantee that. Someone like, let me scroll back up here, someone like the New York Giants would be a great fit for Kyle Pitts. I could see the Dallas Cowboys taking Kyle Pitts. I could see Carolina being the one to make the move. even San Francisco, San Francisco pairing Pitts with George Kittle, two very different types of tight ends. Pitts is basically a larger wide receiver. He can line up almost anywhere. I can see that happening. If the Chargers can't get Hunter Henry back, they might take Kyle Pitts. There are a lot of moves here where he'd come off the board. And wouldn't he just fit in New England? That's the kind of thing New England likes to do. He could also fit with the Arizona Cardinals. So I think he will come off the board inevitably before where I had him going in the first mock, which is 25 overall. 26 Cleveland. Another pick I do not like. Looking back at this one, I have Eric Stokes coming off the board here. I'm about to publish, in the future week and a half or so, I will publish a article listing my top 60 draft products in this class. And Stokes is on the list, I believe, but he's down towards the 40s or 50s. He's not a top 30 player. He's not going to be a first-round pick in my mind anymore, even though I viewed him as such, obviously, when I made this article. I have him falling out of the first round, so I expect to change this up quite significantly in the future and give the Cleveland Browns a different player. Tampa Bay. I have Tampa Bay going Travis Etienne here. I understand this doesn't make a lot of sense. Oh, this is not Tampa Bay. I just picked for Baltimore. I messed it up. There's no way to go back, but I'll tell you what I would have done for Baltimore here. What I would have done for Baltimore is given them Elijah Vera Tucker. And I think Vera Tucker is the ultimate Swiss Army knife in this kind of situation because he played tackle in college. Most people view him as a guard in the NFL level. That's fine because at best, he's a Pro Bowl guard. And at worst, he's a starting guard. And maybe he's even potentially an offensive tackle if, say, Ronnie Stanley can't stay healthy for whatever reason, and he gets hurt in the future again. You now have a guy who played tackle in college to go out there and push outside. So I think Elijah Vera Tucker to Baltimore is the perfect fit because he reinforces an offensive line that's desperately missing Marshall Yonda after he retired. They're probably going to need a new center this year as well. So I think someone to help fix the offensive line is perfect. And AVT has got to be the guy. Even though I clicked Travis Etienne, I apologize for that. But, nothing I can do about that now. 28. I'm just going to proceed as though I didn't mess that up. 28. Nick Bolton, Missouri linebacker, is going to go to New Orleans. Alex Anzalone, well, their linebackers in New Orleans is a free agent. I think they need to bolster that defense. They're going to have to cut and trade a lot of guys, though. They're almost $100 million over the salary cap this year. The Saints are. I don't know how you will survive this offseason and keep your core together. I assume Drew Brees is going to retire, and after that, everything else is just going to fall apart here. So it might not be Nick Bolton because you're going to have a lot more needs by the time you reach the draft. But for now, I think Nick Bolton's a safe pick here. Then moving forward, we have the Green Bay Packers. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to want them to put more weapons around him. I understand that they've made a pretty deep run here in the last couple of years, both years actually, making the NFC Championship this year and last year without having the fantastic weapons that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have this year or something like that. But I think he will want more weapons around him. In hindsight, I should have put Rashawn Bateman here if I was going to take over receiver. But I didn't take Bateman. I put Terrace Marshall from LSU. I think I'll change that in the future as well. That's something I will look at. But I do think they were going to have some kind of receiving threat or some kind of skill position player added in Green Bay at that pick. Number 30 overall, Buffalo. I had Alex Leatherwood going here. That's another pick I really don't agree with in hindsight. I think Tevin Jenkins would be a better selection. And really, the fact they didn't have Sam Cosmi come off the board yet is very disappointing for me because I think that Cosmi is going to be a first-round pick for sure. I think someone like Tevin Jenkins has really risen up in the past couple weeks and will jump Alex Leatherwood and maybe even Liam Eichenberg as well. So I have some issues here with how I wrote this mock up. Again, 4 weeks old. A lot of things have changed in the past month. All right, looking up, we got the Buccaneers. I had Etienne going to the Buccaneers, but obviously I misclicked here. I gave him to the Baltimore Ravens. So there's not much I can do about that, except I guess we can just swap my picks. I had Baltimore taking Elijah Vera Tucker, and I had Tampa Bay taking Travis Etienne to just go all in and put as much around Brady as possible in your short win or go home window, basically. So I had them all going all in by getting the best running back available in the first round. But you know what? Tampa Bay getting AVT is actually not that bad. It's actually pretty good. So I'm not too upset with that selection, even though I screwed it up. Obviously, the Baltimore Ravens are not going to take ETN when they have J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards. But, if AVT falls that far, Tampa Bay could be a very good spot. I realistically don't see him getting past the mid-20s, though. And 32, another questionable decision on my part. I had them taking Sam Cosmi to Kansas City. And I understand it's not necessarily realistic because they have Mitchell Schwartz, who's been hurt most of the year. But that's an all-pro right tackle who's going to be coming back at some point. So taking Sam Cosmi here doesn't make a ton of sense unless you're planning on moving on from Schwartz, which I don't think they are. So that wasn't, again, not the best decision by me, but I fully expect to have this corrected and fixed by the time the next mock draft comes out. Again, some of the best players left available. Christian Barmore for Alabama, Rashad Bateman from Minnesota. Creed Humphreys probably doesn't belong in the same category as some of the guys I've already mentioned. And also we have Mac Jones still out there. There are a bunch of guys who I think could have gone the first round. I just didn't play out there. That's partially my fault. I screwed that up a little bit. But again, like I said, the first mock is really me throwing stuff at the board and just seeing what stuck. And now I kind of figured it out. I'm going to go and make a lot of changes to this mock. Maybe you'll get another one later this week. But you can check out thegruelingtruth.com, which is where I post all of my articles right now. All the mocks will be up there for this year's draft. For now, guys, I appreciate you all tuning in for now and watching this. I'm going to go shovel snow. And keep in mind, I accidentally clicked here. This was not meant to happen. I meant to put AVT here and ETN here to Tampa Bay. That was a mistake. Don't hold it against me. See you guys.